Hi. Today we are starting our web development journey with HTML. In this course, first I will teach you some topics. Later, we will practice them on the VS Code. If you still don't have VS Code, you can watch my video about installation and quick tour. I will teach topics part by part. Therefore, you will understand them more easily. Please follow each part, then make exercises, and I will also share extra homework. Also, you can share your needs in the comments, then I can fulfill them for you to understand topic better. Let's start. Before we start, I need to mention some important stuff. First of all, you also need the code with me when I go to VS Code exercise. Please don't forget the code by yourself, otherwise it will be very hard for you to learn something. Secondly, I will also create separate exercise videos. Please watch them later and make those exercises by yourself. Let's start our first HTML lesson. Here we have got very fancy PowerPoint prepared by me by using Prezi, and let's start. First of all, learn HTML. What is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. As you can understand from the name, it is not basically coding language, however, it is markup language. It's supposed to mark something. It basically helps to create websites that we are using every day. HTML is just showing browsers how to present that website to you. It is using some tags and it represents what that tag stands for. It basically labels the parts. It is like, hey, this is paragraph, this is header, or this is a link. How to run HTML file? Basically, you can run HTML file even with your notepad, and you can just create some coding with HTML. Then you will save that file with extension of .html. Now you can open it in the browser. However, we will use VS Code for the HTML tutorials. If you didn't install VS Code yet, you can check my video and install it from there. The third one is HTML basics. HTML files always start with some documentation declaration. This is how it's done. You use lesser than, exclamation mark, doc type, HTML, greater than sign. Secondly, HTML documents always start with HTML tag and it always closes with HTML tag. There are two main parts in the HTML called head and body. Now let's see how the example of HTML code looks like. Here you can see we have got doc type HTML at the start. It's supposed to be like this every time. Secondly, we open HTML and we close with HTML. And inside of it, we have got two main tags called head and body. Head tag includes something that we generally don't see on the browser, but what we see is always inside of body. So what you wrote inside of body will be seen by the user. Now let's try to understand what are the HTML elements. HTML element is always contains start tag, some content, and end tag. Here are the examples. First example is H1. We will see what does those means soon. As you can see, there is a start tag, my first heading as a content, and closing tag. In the second example, we have got P, my first paragraph, then closing P. Those opening tag, content, and closing tag creates HTML elements. Also, there is something called HTML attributes. It just provides additional information about HTML tags. It is always specified in the starting tag. In the example we saw EMG tag, and inside of it we have got src attribute. So this is how attributes will be used inside of some HTML elements. Now let's start on coding part. First of all, let's open our VSCode and make it bigger. First, let's start with creating a folder. Click here, open new and folder. Let's call it HTML1 and select folder. Now our folder is opened. Let's create a file first. Go to here and click new file and call it index.html. When you create extension .html, it means that this HTML file will be available for the browser. Then let's create our HTML file by writing first lines of the code. First line should be always declaration of document type. So we need to write this. Lesser than, explanation mark, doc type, space, HTML, then greater than. This is supposed to be first line of each HTML file. It just declare this document will be HTML. Then later we go to second line, click enter. Now we always put our code inside of two famous tags called HTML. Let's write those codes. When you write something inside of VS Code as a HTML tag, it automatically closes generally. If it doesn't close, you can write it by yourself. Now we have got basic structure, but missing two important parts. First one is head and the second one is body. Let's write those also. Don't forget, when we write something inside of head, it's generally not for the users, but for the robots or search engines. If you write something inside of body, it is for users, which means we can see them. When you write basic HTML and you want to see them on the browser, what you should do is you need to open live server. To open live server, you need some extension called live server. Go to extensions and write here live server. And just use this live server by right-click there and enable it or install it if you didn't install yet. Then go back to your file, right click, and as you can see there's an option here called open with live server. When you click this, your index.html will be opened on the browser by localhost. Let's try it. As you can see, now my index.html has been opened in my browser. But nothing is inside because I wrote nothing inside of my HTML yet. For the example, I will show some of the HTML tags. However, we will see all of them soon, so don't worry now. Let's try something called title. Title is written inside of head and it will show in the browser. Let's see. Go inside of your head and write here title. And what you wrote inside of title will be shown on the browser tab. Let's check. My first title. And save it. To save it, you can use Ctrl+S. Now let's check what title looks like in the browser. Go to your browser. Now you will see my first title is written on the top. This is where title goes, inside of head, inside of tab in the browser. Let's give another example and finish this first part here. I will write some tag called header. It shows by h1. Let's try it. inside my first title and save it, Ctrl+S, and let's go to browser. As you can see, my first title is here. This is the end of the first part. In the second part, we will see a lot of elements and we will do a lot of coding. Please be sure that you can open this browser, live server, and you can write those HTML codes. See you in the next video. Take care.